I did pretty okay in terms of my grades, but I don't think I was anywhere above average. I don't think I was anywhere, Berkeley standard in terms of my grades or my GPA. I think what stood me apart was I like to think I have a very impressive list of extracurriculars. I like to keep myself very busy and very occupied, and I think that's reflected on my resume. I think that's what helped stood me apart, was that I was very honest about my identity and my background and where I come from and why a business education is important to me, without just saying, oh, I want to make money. As well as the fact that I think when you apply to HaaS, a lot of people think the way to go is to only talk about business. And I talked about a lot of other things. I talked about how the current Middle Eastern war is affecting me. I talked about growing up here in the Bay Area. I talked about a lot of other things that aren't just, I want to have my own business and make a bunch of money. The only way you'll do good work is if you're actually passionate about what you're doing. So I would be like, do I like what I'm doing? Does it align with my passions? Does it align with my goals? Is it going to help me in the future? And is this something that I want to take time out of what I think my busy schedule to? And also, is this something that's helpful and productive and, related to business or economics or whatever it is I want to be doing? I think just sorting through what's actually beneficial in all aspects of the word was really important. Well, if you want to get super big and super broad and super, hopefully not unrealistic, my end goal is to bring peace in the Middle East via economic collaboration. I think that's one way that peace is going to be achieved. But I think that, it would be really my life's goal, my life's mission, if I could be a part of that process to achieve peace, and peace via businesses. That's how people work, especially in the Middle East.
Guys, before we get into the podcast, 91.6% of you guys are not subscribed. So please do hit the subscribe button, since it will help get even crazier guests and blow up the channel. So yeah, let's get back into the video.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Fastlane. Today we have Maya here, who's going to be a freshman in HaaS just very soon. I bet that she's very excited, as we can see, and she's going to move into Berkeley tomorrow. So yeah, Maya, why don't you give a brief introduction to yourself?
Well, hi, I'm Maya. Thank you for the introduction. I'm actually moving into Berkeley tomorrow, so I am very, very excited. I'm also excited because it's the first year that they're doing a 4-year business program at HaaS, so I feel very lucky to be a part of that. But yeah, so basically my entire life I've been very interested in business. My mom is an entrepreneur. She's in the process of founding her own startup, and my grandma was an entrepreneur as well, so it's kind of in my blood to follow that same path. And so when I was about 14 years old, I founded my first business, which I was really into astrology at the time, and it was COVID, so I had nothing else to do but to sit and read and learn. And so basically I learned everything I could about astrology and then sold my services. I would read people's charts. I got into tarot for a while. I got into, reading the stars and learning a lot about astronomy as well. And I learned that it's a lot of work, but it's very fun to have your own business. And I really enjoyed, the scheduling aspect. And I'm very big on organizing my time. And I use Google Calendar for everything. And I use Notion a lot. And so I kind of learned through making having my first business, which I called Maya's Readings, that this is something I genuinely enjoy. Is sort of like blocking out time and making sure everything's very organized and keeping everything very intact, very easy to read in my Notion. And so I kind of realized that this is totally something that I want to keep doing with my life, and that this is something that is entirely possible for teens to do. I was I think between the ages of 14 to about 16 when I had that business, and I was completely able to balance it with my schoolwork, my other extracurriculars, with athletics, anything else I was doing. And not only was it possible, it was a lot of fun, and it taught me a lot. And so I think, similar to the focus of this podcast and kind of your journey, I really want to emphasize how not only helpful it is, but how fun it can be to have your own business as a teen.
Nice, Maya. I appreciate how you already spoke for 2 minutes. You see the passion that you have with your entire business. So before we go all into your business experience, I just want to ask you how are you personally feeling right now, transitioning from high school to university, basically going to adulthood, right?
I mean, it's very scary. I happen to live about 30-40 minutes away from Berkeley, so I'm leaving home, but I'm not really leaving home. If I need something, I can always come back. But it's scary. It's very nerve-wracking. But it's also very, very fun. I'm really excited to kind of start this new life. And I'm even more excited because my program is brand new. So I'm very excited to see, what they do with it and what I'm going to be doing. But I mean, as much of a scary experience it is to transition into adulthood and move away from home, it's an extremely common one. And, a lot of every kid goes through it. And
Yeah.
it's very easy to find comfort knowing that just as much stress as I'm feeling, everyone around me is feeling the exact same things.
Yep, exactly. So if you could summarize your childhood in just like three adjectives, what would those three words be?
My childhood. I would say hectic, international, and loving, if that makes sense.
Nice. Could you like briefly explain like why those three words?
Yeah. So I want to preface by saying I grew up in the Bay Area, if that wasn't a given by my proximity to Berkeley. And so I grew up with friends from all over. I grew up, speaking three languages. That's
Nice.
hence the internationalness. Almost a triple citizen. I kind of, grew up in a place where all of my friends spoke at least one other language that was different than me. And every time I would go over to a friend's house, I would find new food and new cultures awaiting, which I'm really grateful for. And I think that, really shaped me into the person I am today and the values that I have. So that explains international. As for hectic, my mom was always pushing us to do another sport, another
Nice.
club, another extracurriculars, try this, try this, try
Yeah.
this. So I think I've tried about every sport there is on the planet. I ended up sticking with cheer, and as of right now, I really like to go on long runs. But that explains hectic, and I like to think I grew up in a very loving household with people who have supported me and loved me and, supported me through my business endeavors and my academic endeavors and going to Berkeley and all these other things.
Yep. So in terms of like, the university, why Berkeley out of, so many different business schools you can choose? Was there a particular
Well,
reason?
I can explain. I can give you my two options if
All
that
right.
helps. So I was
Okay.
choosing
Yeah.
between there's a program between Tel Aviv University and Columbia where you do 2 years at TAU, Tel Aviv, and you do 2 years at Columbia. And that was my top choice program. I wanted to go there so badly, and I got in, and I completely thought I was going
Nice.
to go. And then I got into Berkeley. And when I got into Berkeley, I didn't know about this HaaS program. It's called the speaker
It's a
program.
new one. Yeah.
It's a new one, yeah. So I didn't know about that at the time of applying, and I didn't really know until after I got in and I did some more research. And when I did my research, I realized it would be very stupid of me to not take this opportunity. HaaS is one of the best business schools in the world. It is, it has one of the largest alumni networks. It has so many resources. And it was also like, I would have moved thousands of miles away to another country, whereas now I'm moving 40 minutes away and I'm really, really close to my family. So that was really important to me. But I think in general, Berkeley was just a much better choice academically than TAU or Columbia could have been.
Yeah, 100%. And in terms of like, like the application process, we all know that HaaS is super competitive, right? I think it's like in the
Oh,
single
yeah.
digit percentage for the acceptance rate. So for you personally, what do you think stood out to, the examiners?
So actually, I have a lot of takes on this because I did pretty okay in terms of my grades, but I don't think I was anywhere above average. I don't think I was anywhere, Berkeley standard in terms of my grades or my GPA. They weren't bad, but the kids that are going to Berkeley are crazy smart, taking all the
Yeah.
APs, IB, whatever it is, and math was just not my strong suit. But I think what stood me apart was I like to think I have a very impressive list of extracurriculars. I like to keep myself very busy and very occupied, and I think that's reflected on my resume. And I also think I was very personal and vulnerable in my essays, which I completely understand not wanting to, deep dive into your college essays. That makes a lot of sense. But I think that's what helped stood me apart was that I was very honest about my identity and my background and where I come from and why a business education is important to me without just saying, oh, I want to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that and combined with my extracurriculars, I think is what stood me apart. As well as the fact that I think when you apply to HaaS, a lot of people think the way to go is to only talk about business. And I talked about a lot of other things. I talked about how the current Middle Eastern war is affecting me. I talked about growing up here in the Bay Area. I talked about a lot of other things that aren't just, I want to have my own business and make a bunch of money. So,
Yeah, 100%. So now before we get into, all of your other businesses, which I'm very super interested to, dive into, what is your expectation with HaaS? Like, what do you want out of the program? I think this is one of the questions that they ask you in the essays,
yeah.
but if you don't mind sharing, like, what are your
Yeah.
overall impressions?
So I really believe in the power of a strong network, and I think HaaS couldn't exemplify that better. HaaS is very, very, very they care a lot deeply about their alumni network, and they care a lot about their connections with a bunch of, businesses and startups. And so I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what HaaS can give me in terms of a strong professional network. And, that can help in currently that could help me with internships and jobs, but in the future that could help me with so much more. That could be, potential future investors for my business. That could be potential mentors. That could be potential lifelong friends. That could be, people who share the same goals and values of me, which is very important to surround yourself with. And so I think in terms of, they're good academics and things like that, I'm really excited for not only my fellow peers that I'm going to meet, but those two, but, everyone else, all these people I'm going to get to interact with.
Yeah, I think that's one of the core values of HaaS is that it's the number one in the Bay Area. And like I was doing research on the alumni for HaaS, and a lot of them were like entrepreneurs, right? They were startup founders. They had their own mini projects. So I think
It's a crazy network.
really,
They're
yeah, it's a
very,
crazy
very
network.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So transitioning over to your astrological chart reading business, which you've introduced briefly, in the first couple of minutes of the podcast, which is amazing. You pursued that for over 3 years. And I actually watched some of your other podcasts that you've done. And
The guild one?
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind sharing, like, could you briefly run us down of how you basically like analyze everyone's birth charts? Like, what's the overall strategy? I'm just really interested in this.
So, it's what I'm going to say. So there's obviously astrology is a very, very ancient practice. And given so there's many different ways to, I'm sure someone on the other side of the world is going to disagree with me and have their own way. And that's the way things
Yeah.
go. But, the way I do is that it looks like a circle and it's divided up into a bunch of different planets and things called houses. I can pull one up and maybe show you.
That'd be great.
But I basically learned, this is mine. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see. Oh,
I think it's a
thank
bit
you.
glowy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, basically, if you could see, if you look up what a birth chart looks like, you'll see it's this circle and it looks like a bunch of lines in the middle of it. And so I basically learned how to read that. It's the same as learning how to read a graph or kind of learning how to read a language or learning how to read a picture. You just have to learn what all the symbols mean and, what they symbolize. And once you go from there, I can see someone's chart and realize, okay, their sun is in Aries. This tells me this and this and this. Or their moon sign appears to be in Pisces, which tells me this and this. Those are actually my signs. I'm an Aries sun, Pisces moon. But,
Yes.
I think the reason I got so into astrology, which is a question that a lot of people ask me, I think just has to do with the fact that I live in San Francisco, very hippie-ish San Francisco, where there's a lot of people advertising their astrological services and palm readings and tarot readings and horoscopes and whatever. And I always just found it so, so cool. And then I realized not only is this like cool to see, it's very cool to take the time to learn about and learn the science behind it. And because it's been around for so long, there's just so much knowledge everywhere that I could find. And then I realized I could totally make money from this. There's like, my friends would ask me to read their charts and I would do all this work in preparation for them. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a business. This is how people come up with their ideas. So,
So with like your overall experience with astrology, how accurate do you think were the predictions that you've made?
Okay, I don't think of it as predictions. I think of it more as telling you more about yourself. And I will say, for those of you who do not believe in astrology, I just want to preface, I so understand. It's not for everyone. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I think for me personally, my birth chart is very accurate, but I think for others, it's just not that accurate, and that's okay. I think for some people, I'll talk to them and they'll be like, yes, this resonates, this is so me. And some people I talk to them and they'll just be looking at me like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I was a little off there, but it's not an exact science. I personally believe it's pretty accurate, but I believe it's accurate for me. It's not for everyone.
Got you. So like diving more into, your overall business model, I saw that you were doing, Calendly things, right? And there was like lots
Yes,
of
love
systems set
Calendly.
in place. I think Calendly is still one of the most popular software nowadays. But overall, what was like the overall client base that you served the most, like at the end?
Like the types of people that would come to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you now. Sorry. Yeah, so In the beginning, I'll start from the beginning and then kind of work my way. In the beginning, it was a lot of fellow teens. It was my friends and friends of friends, and I was trying to grow my business and family members. And then from there, it was a lot. It was it was like a lot of, I would say, people between the ages of like 30 and like 60 who I think like didn't really know what astrology was, but were very curious. And I would market everywhere in San Francisco. So I'd put up flyers, I'd go to coffee shops, I'd go to businesses and talk to the receptionist and tell them to spread the word at lunch. I would, go everywhere. And so I think from that, I got a lot more people who were way out of my generation who just were like, what is this girl talking about? I'm curious. Let me find out. And so I think towards the end, right about when I kind of stopped doing it, it was a lot more like Gen X, even boomers who were my clients.
Yeah. Nice. So right now, I noticed that I think you stopped doing this astrology business. So what was your overall thinking with that? Like, is this time to move on, or are you looking to pursue this maybe later on in the future?
As I got older, I don't want to say I grew out of astrology. I think it was just sort of my hyperfixation for a really long time. And then I got older and started getting interested in different things. It's still something I'm really interested in and will always be passionate about. But, when you're a teen, things change. And also, the older I got, the busier I got. I think after I turned 16, I started balancing 2 other jobs. And I, put a lot of time into, I did cheer at school, and I put a lot of time into my APs and my other extracurriculars. And I was so focused on getting into a good school, which I have my own thoughts about that mindset later on. But, I think I just realized not only am I too busy, it's in the past. It's not who I am anymore.
Nice. So what is your most, current probably spot of interest right now after, astrology? I noticed that you wrote something about VC on your LinkedIn, entrepreneurship. So where do you think of pivoting right now with like HaaS and everything?
Right now, especially with HaaS and especially with watching what my mom is doing, I am very, very interested into the kind of funding stage of a startup and how that
Nice.
money is achieved and, what can get you that money? How do you get that money? And as a person who also wants another startup one day, that I think is very important for me to learn. But I think the way to learn is to be on the outside, see what VCs look for, what they want, what they don't want out of a startup, what's a red flag, what's a green flag, how are you going to get the money? And I'm learning a lot of that just by watching my mom and watching her go on all these calls and watching her have all these meetings and, her debriefing with me. And it's very interesting to learn. It's like, to me, it's a very like psychological type science. It's, I think it really humanizes the industry, because I think it's very easy to look at VCs as money, robots, or same with
Yeah.
startups. But I think when you take the time to step back and kind of humanize everybody, it's a very interesting thing to learn about.
Yeah, I've been looking into a lot of VC as well. I think it's something that's very interesting because you also get like lots of, and it's probably busy every single day because you're running over
Oh, yeah.
meetings and you're having lots of connections with everyone. So you're talking about like BBYO, which is, for people who don't know, I'll try to pronounce this right. Is it B'nai B'rith Youth Organization? Maybe.
So it's technically B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, but they separated from the B'nai B'rith company. So technically BBYO right now is just BBYO. It doesn't stand for anything, but it's a Jewish youth organization for those
Yeah.
who don't know.
Yeah. So you contributed 5 years to this organization, and I noticed that
Oh,
you've done
yeah.
like lots of like different roles, right? Outreach and everything. So could you share with us some of your core takeaways and highlights from these roles?
Yeah. So BBYO was a huge part of my life from it's an organization for 8th grade to your senior year of high school. So the entire time it could be in the organization I was very, very active as a member. So there are, just to give some context, there are chapters, there's regions, and there's the international order. So my chapter was, my immediate area. So like 20 minutes outside. My region was all of Northern California. And then there's the international order. So, which, there's BBYO in almost every country. Not every country, but a lot of the countries. So from the second I joined when I was 8th grade freshman, I immediately knew that I wanted to hold a leadership position. And so I kind of worked my way up. I started with like very small chapter level positions. And then we have regional conventions with about 200 members, sometimes 300 members in attendance. And so I was an administrative assistant for one of those. I coordinated one of those conventions, almost single-handedly. That is a funny story in which you're supposed to have a co-coordinator to basically guide the whole convention with you. And about a week before the convention, my co-coordinator dropped off the face of the earth. And I was terrified because now I'm left to run this like 300-person convention on my own. But that was a very good learning lesson because I did it and it was successful. And as long as you're confident, you can do anything. So there was that. And then I ended up, my last position, I think, was I was vice president of the region. And being vice president also entailed being in charge of all programming for the region, managing all the chapter level vice presidents, managing these big conventions. And so that really, really instilled in me the value of time management. I had about 10-ish calls a week, and during convention season, it was a lot more. And so I really had to learn how to make sure that I have enough time for all these calls. I was a junior in high school, so I was super stressed about APs and getting into college, all of that. I was doing cheer at the time. There was just a lot going on. And now I know Google Calendar is my best friend. I have everything in my Google Calendar. And so I think my biggest takeaway from being an active leader in BBYO was that you need to make sure that you schedule your time or else you're going to mess things up.
Yeah, 100%. So what other softwares do you personally use to, organize your entire day, especially with so many different things other than Google Calendar?
I feel like I've hopped around a few. I've been really into Notion recently. I am obsessed with Notion. I've always used it for school, to have a, to-do list and organize all my homework. But I feel like I've been learning that Notion has new more features every day. And so right now I have the Notion calendar synced up to my Google Calendar so that when I put something in my Notion as a to-do list, it'll show up on my calendar, which I love. Has been so helpful. I just created for myself an entire Notion page for all of my classes this year, which I think will be really helpful. And I've inputted the syllabus and resources and textbooks. So I just have everything in one place, which I think is what Notion is great for. It's just, you have whatever you want in one page. You can have all the hyperlinks you want, all the subpages you want, but it's in one clean, fresh page.
It's pretty nice. Yeah. I personally also use Notion for lots of systems. So highly recommend that to anyone. Yeah. So before we talk, more about, your purpose or some larger different topics, right? You were also a barista at Starbucks for a certain amount of time, which is pretty, I guess, surprising for some people since, you've been doing lots of other projects as well. So could you briefly touch upon what was your overall decision with that and how did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love coffee. So being a barista at Starbucks was perfect. This is free coffee, but it taught me a lot more than I thought it would. Having this sort of job in which I get an actual paycheck and I'm working for this big corporation was not something I was used to. I had a job previously as a waitress, but that was at a very small, family-owned restaurant. And it was, not a big corporation like Starbucks where I had, they gave me a 401k and I had, all these benefits and all these things that were novel to me. But working at Starbucks, I think I really enjoyed because there was a lot of people interaction. Every day I was talking to new people. We had our regular customers who I very much enjoyed kind of building a bond with and building a connection with. And it was also, it was just a nice break. I'd be very stressed about school and I have all this homework and all these, organizations that I have to attend to. And then I can just go to work and just sit behind the bar and make coffee all day and talk to people and ask them about their days. And it was a good way to kind of relieve a lot of my stress. And I hope I was able to relieve some of the stress of my customers by giving them their coffee. But I think the idea of working there seemed appealing to me, mainly because I thought this seems like a nice chill way to relieve stress while also making money.
Yeah, nice. So with all of your different projects that you've been working on, is there some kind of decision matrix that you personally go through? Because how we in Bay Area, there's lots of different opportunities, right? You can do an intern in this startup, or you can start your own thing, or there's just a million different things you could do. So what was your overall process flow to, decide whether or not to dive into this thing?
I do want to say it's very overwhelming. First of all, it's nice to have a lot of opportunities, but having them all kind of thrown at you and do this and do this and do this, it's a lot. And so I really would kind of take the time to be okay, do I want to do this first of all, or am I just doing it because I think it'll look good on my resume, which is, I think, a very good first step. I don't think you should ever do something just because you think it'll look good. I think the only way you'll do good work is if you're actually passionate about what you're doing. So I would be like, do I like what I'm doing? Does it align with my passions? Does it align with my goals? Is it going to help me in the future? And is this something that I want to take time out of what I think my busy schedule to actually do? But then also, is this something that's helpful and productive and, related to business or economics or whatever it is I want to be doing? But yeah, I think just sorting through what's actually beneficial in all aspects of the word was really important.
Nice. Yeah, I think just prioritizing and like mostly finding what you're passionate about is something that I think many people should probably do and probably miss out sometimes as well. Yeah. So looking to like a bigger picture of your entire life, like where do you see yourself like, after HaaS, or what do you think your overall purpose is, in this world? I know it's a really big question, but
well, if you want to get super big and super broad and super, hopefully not unrealistic, my end goal is to bring peace in the Middle East via economic collaboration. I think that's one way that peace is going to be achieved. Also, peace in the Middle East is something very near and dear to my heart. Given that I am Middle Eastern, I'm Israeli. But I think that, it would be really my life's goal and my life's mission if I could be a part of that process to achieve peace. And peace via businesses. That's how people work, especially in the Middle East. That's how the way things go. There's a lot of entrepreneurs there. They all have their small businesses. And if you could work together and if you could find some sort of economic balance between, everyone's businesses and each of the two sides, I think that's the way that you're going to find mutual respect and common ground. And so if I could be a part of that process over there, helping to bridge the divide between, this side and this side, I think that's what I would want to spend my life doing.
Nice. I think it's a pretty passionate subject that I think only probably I wouldn't resonate a lot because I don't have this, identity. I probably resonate with something more. So speaking about like identity, right? Like how much of that do you think shaped your, current action, and like what's your overall view with identity?
I think identity and identity doesn't just have to mean your ethnic background or your religious background. Identity includes the way you're brought up, what you like, what you dislike, your values, your goals, your ambitions, your favorite color. Identity is everything. And so given that, to me, it shapes who you are as a person. Of course, it's going to guide you in your life. And of course, it's going to guide your academic aspirations and your professional aspirations. And identity is with you every step of the way. And I think it's something that's also ever changing. Astrology was a huge part of my identity, if you asked me when I was 15, and now not so much, but it's still always with me. And it's still this knowledge that I'll carry with me forever. But yeah, if that answered your question.
Yeah. Nice. So for someone who's like, who does not probably have their own identity right now, or still trying to, struggle and find their way to see what they're passionate about, what would be like your biggest advice for them over the years?
Well, I want to first tell them that most people don't know what their identity is. That's such a complex question. If someone asks you, who are you? What's your identity? I don't know. It's a very hard thing to know. So if you think that, you're in a rough spot because you can't answer the question, who are you? Or what is your identity? You are so not alone. I think that's very common. But I will say, focus on the little things. What's your favorite show? What do you enjoy doing? What type of music do you listen to? All these little parts of you that you may think are mundane or don't mean anything, add to your identity and make up who you are.
Yeah, nice. So looking at these little pieces and seeing what you personally like, I guess, when you're younger, or like having
start
these,
from
like,
the little
hints.
things. You'll build your way up.
Nice. So before you wrap up this podcast, is there anything that you would personally like to share with, the people who are watching, or for yourself, like, after 5 years after you've graduated from HaaS?
I think for any current high schoolers watching this or any teens, I really, really, really want to emphasize that you're not too young for anything. Everything is in your reach. There is so many resources, free resources, I would like to add, available to you just by looking online, by listening to this podcast, by reaching out to, you or the people on this podcast. I promise you, you will find people who are more than willing to help you. Hit me up anytime. I will share everything I know, any resource I have. But I just really want to stress that you are not too young for anything. And there is a multitude of people and resources out there to guide you, and you just have to look for them, and they're very easy to find.
Yeah, always believe that age is just a number. So how about for for yourself, like in 5 years, what would be your core message?
I want to tell myself in 5 years to look back at all my accomplishments and be very proud. No matter what I do, no matter how my life goes in 5 years, I have no idea how my life is going to go in 5 years, but I do have faith that I'll be able to look back and have pride in my accomplishments. And I also want to tell myself to stay confident. Confidence is everything. Confidence will get you so many places in life. No matter how my life is going, I think that if I stay true to myself and stay confident, it'll all work out. So, yeah.
Nice. I think we should schedule another podcast, 5 years exactly. So 2020, 2029, August 20th, part 2. Yeah. Just rewinding everything that's gone on. But yeah,
For
Maya,
sure.
I really appreciate you hopping on the pod. It's been
Thank you for having me.
amazing speaking to you. So yeah,
Me
I'll
too.
definitely link all of Maya's social media and everything in the description, and also any resources that we mentioned as well for those who are interested. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this.
Really quickly.
Yeah,
Connect with me
on
LinkedIn. Message me anytime. I'm here.
Yeah, 100% do that, guys. Whoever's still watching till the end. So yeah,
Thanks for watching.
thanks for watching.